Hi, this is Kyle, and this is just meant to be a quick video introduction to SQL. I missed a class, so I wanted a little lecture to get us caught up, and this is the form it's taking. At the very basics, we're looking at what is SQL. We went through the install last week, and I hope you haven't had problems with that. If you have, consider talking to some of your colleagues, because it is important you can use it. SQL, we usually pronounce it SQL, and it stands for Structured Query Language. Some people will say Standard Query Language. And the other thing that's pretty common is some people will call it SQL, and you'll hear about MySQL and things like that. I tend to call it SQL because I had a database professor who was very particular about calling it SQL, and so that's totally ingrained in me. I don't particularly mind if you call it a SQL, but really SQL is what it's called. So it's used to communicate with a database, and it's the standard language for relational database management systems, or database management systems we've heard abbreviated as DBMS. Also, calling it a standard language is a little bit funny because different DBMSs do have subtle differences in their use of SQL, but mostly it's a pretty good standard. Here are some resources up front. The course and the tutorial are meant to walk you through the whole thing. The W3 schools, though, I can't recommend enough. It's a really good reference document. So this is what it looks like on W3 schools. If you just even Google SQL W3 schools, you'll see this, and you'll see it kind of walks you through the basics of what it can do, and then the basics of all of the major statements. It includes demonstrations, examples of exact statements, and these try it yourself buttons let you try these statements out in an environment where you can't break anything. So again, can't recommend that enough. If you're stuck on something in particular, you should go in and check out that site. There are 4 commonly used SQL statements that make up most typical SQL code. So these are kind of the big ones. They're not certainly all it is, but they're the big ones. There's select statements, and these are the most common statements. They read data from the database. They are just getting information. That's selecting information. And it can select from tables, from queries, from functions, and other things. Updating is just like the update queries in Access, which I know we didn't use too much, but it is just like those. So it's updating existing data in a data table. Insert is inserting a new record into a data table, so it's a SQL statement to insert new information into a table. And then there's delete, which deletes one or many data records from a table, and we'll look at examples of each of these. So this is a simple select command, where really you just write select the field names you want. This is one for a single table. We'll get into the more complex examples perhaps later. But we say select from, and we specify a table name. You can optionally say where with some kind of condition, and you can order by with field names, and you can say ascending or descending. So the whole where clause and the order by clause is completely optional. You can just have select this from this. The example you see here is selecting from something called TBL students. This is actually an example we've done in Access. Selecting the last name, first name, and student ID from TBL students, where last name is like M. And we've seen a like statement in Access as well. What we didn't see was this percentage sign here. Wildcards in most implementations of SQL are done with a percentage sign rather than an asterisk like we saw in Access. So if you want this to work in SQL, you'll use a percentage sign instead. And then order by last name ascending, comma, first name. So what this is going to do is select the student's last name, first name, and student ID in that order, only matching the last names that start with M. And it's going to put the last names in ascending order, followed by first names. Update commands can update information in more than one or more records in a table. So that's things like we had an example where we wanted to give a group of people an incremental raise. So we would update their salaries by a certain amount. This is how you would update it. You say update the table name. You set which values you want to change, as many as you want. And the where clause can be left out, but if you do that, then it updates every record, so be careful with that. This one is update, this example is update students, set has written midterm 1, where term ID equals 4. So what this is saying is every student with a term ID of 4, we're going to say that they have written the midterm. Insert commands are just adding new records to the table, and these are 2 different ways to do it. You can specify which parts of the table you're going to insert into. You start with insert into, you list the table name, you can list which columns to insert the values into, and then you'll say values and a list of values. So example here is insert into students. You want to include their last name, their first name, and their student ID. And the values here that I've chosen kind of arbitrarily is Anita Martini, and her student ID is 100699999. Not a real person. And then we've got the delete command, which deletes data from a table. And this looks like delete from with a table name where some column is given a value. And if you don't include a where, bad things could happen. Let's look at how these will actually work. And so we'll start with our select command. I'll open up pgadmin here. We'll go to the query tool. And let's type in basically what these are exactly. So I'm going to type them out because there are naming differences. So I'm going to select student last, student first, student number from TBL students, where student last, you can see besides the naming changes, this is identical, like M. Order, well, let's try it without the order and we'll see what it's like with the order. So I click this lightning bolt to execute the statement. There we go. Now you can see we've got a few names there. I'm not going to try and pronounce everything. And let's now add in the order by and see what that looks like. Student last, ASC. ASC means ascending, student first. What we should see now is those will become in alphabetical order. So it should go Jerry, followed by Timothy, followed by Brianna afterwards. And you can see it does. Now let's try inserting a student. So insert into TBL students. I can indicate which fields, so I'll go student last, student first, student number, values, and I'll put in here Martini, Anita, and 100699999. So that should add Anita into this database, and so she's now inserted. Let's run our query again. Anita happens to have a last name that starts with M. So if we run our select query again exactly as it was, we now see that Anita is in there. She's kind of a joke student, so let's try removing her. We're going to do delete from TBL students where student number equals 100699999. So you can see it says delete one. All it shows you is that that has happened. And if we run our select query again, you can see that now Anita is removed. So that's how those statements have worked. You've seen them working now. Why don't we go through the actual creation script that we ran and just look and see what's familiar here. So this is the script that you were supposed to have run once you got pgadmin installed, once you got Postgre installed, I should say. Looking at it, what you're going to notice is a bunch of comments, and these comments are similar in structure to the ones in C# that you've been working with. This file creates a bunch of tables automatically, well, somewhat automatically. Really, you're just pasting this into the query tool. And so what this first part does here is it says remove the commenting on the commands below if the tables already exist. So this entire part here, this is an open comment, and this is a close comment. So this entire section is commented out right now. So if you wanted to run this script again to remove the tables and reinsert a clean version, you would uncomment these lines. And you could do that by just moving this part outside of the comment bracket or something like that. So drop table removes the table entirely. The next part that happens, so these are descriptive headers. They've got kind of these block comment indicators here. So these are the actual SQL statements here. So this one is the students table. It's creating a student number. It's an integer and it can't be left blank. We've got a student first name. Char 50 means it's a string, basically. We're treating it as a list of characters, and the maximum length happens to be 50. Next, we got the major code. In this case, we're talking about the difference between CST and CPA, which I didn't include for Anita Martini, by the way. And we indicate the primary key by using this capital statement, primary key student number. We're saying that the primary key is the student number. Then we've got this huge batch of insert statements. And so this is going to insert a bunch of properly formatted students. So insert into TBL students values, and this is the list of values. And this happens to be the student ID, the student first name, last name, and program and major code. And it does that again and again until we've got a list of our 10 sample students. Next, we've got the table for majors. This only has 2 values, but what it is it's 3 characters representing the major code, and you can see those here. It's got a major description, and that's just a longer description of the program. We happen to have capped it at 30 characters because I think the longest one is Computer Systems Technologist, which should be Technology, I believe, anyway. And we're setting the primary key equal to the major code, so these are the primary key here. And if we added in more programs, we would still be able to have that as a primary key. This part is a little longer. This is the grades table. So we're associating a student number with a course code with a grade, and the primary key is a composite key, student number and course code. So it's a composite primary key because of this statement, saying that those together are the primary key. So this is now inserting grades for all of the students in all of the courses. So this part's a little bit long. It's fairly well organized though. So what you can see here is that the student number 100000001 is giving these marks in each of the courses. So insert into TBL grades this set of values. Then we do the same for the next student, and so on. So that's what these insert statements are doing. The next section, the last section, is creating the courses table. So the courses all have a course code, which is the primary key, and a description, which is more like the name of the course that we happen to limit to 30 characters. So we're saying insert into TBL courses this set of values. There are only 2 values, so we're putting in the course code and the description. And these are the 6 courses that we're entering grades for in this database. So that's pretty much exactly how this script works, and we'll walk through a couple more examples in class later this week. Thanks.